Today we are getting into the meat of the vision that Daniel has in Daniel 7. And that brings us to, I'm going to review a little bit. In verse 3, it said, 4 great beasts, each different from the others, came up out of the sea. And then in verse 4, it says, this was like a lion, and it had the wings of an eagle. So we've got this lion, it's got eagle's wings. What does that represent? It represents Babylon and the swift conquests that came with that. In addition to that, statues of winged lions have been recovered in the ruins of Babylon. So archaeologists have uncovered these statues. Then as we continue on, I watched until its wings were torn off and it was lifted from the ground. So he's watching the wings getting torn off. Babylon's wings are being torn off. It's lifted off the ground so that it stood on 2 feet like a human being, and the mind of a human was given to it. Then we get to verse 5, and there before me was a second beast, which looked like a bear. It was raised up on one of its sides. It had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. It was told, get up and eat your fill of flesh. So this bear is devouring something, and it's being told, to eat as much as it wants. This bear that ravaged this lion is Medo-Persia. Medo-Persia took over Babylon. The 3 ribs in its mouth represent the conquests of 3 major enemies. Verse 6, after that I looked, and there before me was another beast, one that looked like a leopard, and on its back it had 4 wings like those of a bird. This beast had 4 heads, and it was given authority to rule. So let's think this through. It looks like a leopard. It's got 4 wings, and they look like bird wings, and it has 4 heads, and it was given authority to rule. These represent Greece's wings, represent Greece. The wings are Alexander the Great's swift victory over 4 years. The heads is how the kingdom was divided after his death. So if you look in the history books, you'll see that Alexander the Great had 4 victories very, very quickly. The swiftness of a bird's wings. However, the heads is how the kingdom was divided. After Alexander the Great died, the kingdom was divided into 4 different sections. Verse 7. After that, in my vision at night, I looked, and there before me was a 4th beast, terrifying and frightening and very powerful. It had large iron teeth. It crushed and devoured its victims and trampled underfoot whatever was left. It was different from all the former beasts. It had 10 horns. So this has 2 representations. It represents Rome, but it also represents those end times I told you about yesterday that we haven't gotten to. So many Bible scholars believe that the horns correspond to 10 kings who will reign shortly before God sets up his everlasting kingdom. These 10 kings had still not come to power at the time of John's vision recorded in the book of Revelation. In addition to that, the 10 kings that was in Revelation 17:12. Then as we move into verse 8, while I was thinking about the horns, there before me was another horn, a little one, which came up among them, and 3 of the first horns were uprooted before it. The horn had eyes like the eyes of a human being and a mouth that spoke boastfully. So this little horn pops out, and 3 of the horns are completely uprooted. 3 of those kingdoms are brought completely uprooted. And then it has eyes like a human being, and its mouth spoke boastfully. So we've got 10 horns. we've got the little one, and then we've got 3 horns that were taken away. 10 plus 1 is 11, minus 3 is 8. 8 is the number of Christ. The little horn is a future human ruler, or the Antichrist. You can get more information about that in 2 Thessalonians 2:3. God is illustrating the final end of all worldly kingdoms in contrast to his eternal kingdom. The little horn is the Antichrist. It's illuminating the end of all worldly kingdoms. In the book of Revelation, John also recorded a vision of a scarlet beast that had 7 heads and 10 horns in Revelation 17:3. The angel told John that the 10 horns were 10 kings. You'll find that in Revelation 17:12. Most likely, these would be 10 rulers who would rule under the Antichrist. The number 10 may be literal, or more likely, it symbolizes the totality of the powers on earth that will serve the Antichrist and war against Christ. I'm getting this from the Cultural Study Bible. In John's day, Rome was the world power, but would be followed by other powers. Whoever the 10 kings are, they will give their power to the Antichrist and will make war against Christ and his followers. So as we think about this and we think about how this applies to our life, we have to remember that even though you've got these world powers that are going to come into play and hand their power over to the Antichrist, none of it is out of God's control. He's still got us. Have a wonderful day. God bless, and keep walking the walk.